Wow, this is going to be controversial, isn't it? I want to state beforehand that this is 100% an opinion, and I'm just letting you guys know why this is my favorite game. It doesn't have to be yours. You can hate this game. That's cool. We can agree to disagree. That's perfectly fine. Just letting you guys know why it's mine. So, with that out of the way, roll the intro. I want to start off by saying that I love this game. I have probably played it maybe 4 times, and then going into this video, I played it for my 5th time. And the main reason why I wanted to make this video is because, obviously, over the past couple weeks, PlayStation has been revealing games that they're going to be releasing here soon. And one of the games is a fully remastered version of The Last of Us Part 1 for the PS5. That got me very excited, and I want to do a video on it because this is one of my favorite games ever made. And since it's getting remade on the PS5, it'll work with all of the PS5 features, like the haptic feedback and the adaptive triggers. But let's get back to the game, though. Let's just get back to the game. I think that this game is beautiful in all areas that it is in. It really has the growth of like the human spirit and that father-daughter relationship that develops throughout the game. But I want to break this video up into different categories, talking about it, and obviously the story will be the last part since it's probably going to be the longest part. But I'll start off with the graphics first. The game was released on June 14th, 2013, so it's been 9 years since the original The Last of Us came out. I played this game on the remastered version, which was released for the PS4, since the original version of The Last of Us was released for the PS3. So the remastered version came out on July 21st, 2014, so that game is coming up on 8 years old here in a few weeks. And obviously this game is not competing with any game nowadays, like graphically wise, just because of the fact of how old this game is. But I will give it credit for how pretty it is considering how old it is. The characters look pretty good, but the real standout to me is the nature set pieces that you walk through and that you'll encounter while playing. Those places are absolutely beautiful. The remake has 1080p graphical resolution, which is pretty normal for a game to be released in the past few years. But if you were playing this game, it was not going to be for the graphics. So let's hop off of this really quickly and head over to the actual gameplay. One thing I saw while researching this game is I saw a lot of people shitting on the game. They said that the gameplay was too boring and too simple, and I honestly completely disagree with that, because I think the fighting is very fun. Then out of the fighting, I think that's even more fun because we get to see the characters actually engaging and talking and building that story and that relationship. And while the characters are talking and engaging, it's a great way to understand the characters and actually see how they feel and interact with one another. We also get a lot of heartfelt moments between Joel and Ellie during these times as well, which, spoiler alert, is probably the main reason you're playing this game. It's seeing their journey, seeing how their relationship develops, what they have to go through, and everything just bit by bit by bit as you go along with them. But we'll get more into the story in a little bit. The world itself feels very open and lets you explore a lot of different areas. I mean, you are obviously confined to a level, obviously, so it's not a completely open world, but the level they give you to explore is very big, and there's a lot of shops that you can go into that are opened up and you can explore and get like different stuff out of, or there's just a bunch of different stuff that you can like just go around and do. The world doesn't feel like, okay, you go this path and this path and this path, and there's no like diverging off of that path. You can do other stuff. It really does help the world feel very like open and alive, since there is items and there will be enemies in these areas. And a small gripe I can give the game is a very small majority of the areas that you can explore don't really have anything, or there are no enemies, and there's really nothing there, so it kind of feels dead. But I mean, the game can't be perfect. Like I said though, there's items in these areas that you can use to craft stuff, and the crafting system really isn't like crazy fleshed out, but I really don't think that it needed to be. I personally really enjoy it because you really know all the items you need to craft stuff, and they don't give you an insane amount of number of stuff to craft to the point where it's like completely overwhelming and is like bogging you down with it. And one other thing is, everything you make in the crafting system really counts and is actually very useful. For example, you can make a shiv with a blade and a binding piece, and you can use that shiv to kill enemies quicker. You can use it to survive getting grabbed by clickers, and you can also use it as one way to kill clickers in stealth. Just one item that has multiple different purposes. And you find the items to craft these things, I would feel like a good amount of time. So if like you're really in a pinch and you really need it, you'll probably find it. But it's not to the point where it's over excessive and the game becomes way too easy. So they do give you some challenge there. But then you can also modify your guns that you get as well with gears that you find throughout the world along with the items. And you can modify your guns at like little like crafting benches. And you can add like scopes to certain guns, you can add more ammo to your magazine, or you can just like reload faster. And they don't give you enough gears to the point where you can fully modify each gun, so you really need to pick and choose on what gun you use it on and to really make it count. Like for me, I put a lot of upgrades into my bow, and the reason for that is because I played stealth a lot. And the bow is a very good weapon in stealth since it's ranged and it's quiet, so it was just very, very good all around. And one thing that's also really nice is when you upgrade the guns, you can actually feel it. Like you can tell that something's been upgraded. Like the reload speed, it's not like a very slight change. It's like you can definitely tell that you're reloading faster. Or the fire rate, you can definitely tell that you can like fire faster, so you don't have to pause in between shots. You can definitely feel the upgrades, which is nice. And then for your actual character, Joel, you can get like these like little pill bottle things that you can use to upgrade him with like basic stuff like health and stuff like that. Nothing about it is overwhelming at all, I would say, and it keeps it simple, which I enjoy, and I think that new players would enjoy as well. So, what are you doing when you're not walking, talking, and looking for gears? And that is obviously fighting. And the two ways to fight are obviously going in like guns blazing, being very loud, and then obviously the stealth option of it. I'll start out with the one that I use less often, which is the guns blazing option. And that is because I enjoyed playing the game more stealth-wise. It was obviously more intelligent because you weren't like burning through all your ammo, and you were having to like rely on the melee combat and just like were really struggling. So I went stealth a lot of the ways, but guns blazing was definitely fun as well. And for that, it's like over the shoulder, and you have like a little small circle in the middle of the screen that when you're moving, the circle gets bigger, so obviously the fire range in it is larger. But if you stop moving, the circle gets smaller, and the fire range in the circle is obviously smaller. It's pretty easy stuff to understand, and I would say that the game pushes hiding behind cover and not running around like a lunatic trying to kill people. I mean, you can do it and have success, but I mean, your aim will obviously probably be a little bit worse than if you're taking pop shots. Then on to the guns, the weapons that you actually use. I would say that they're pretty fun to use. I mean, you do have your basic pistol and you do have your basic revolver, but then later in the game you get some really cool weapons like a big ass fucking revolver with a scope on it. And there's one that's my personal favorite that I'm not going to spoil because I want you guys to find it. And on top of that, the weapons feel nice to shoot and they respond well, so that's always a plus. The melee combat though, it's not the craziest thing in the world. It's not super deep, it's pretty basic, where it's just you mash square and you'll punch a dude or hit a dude with whatever melee weapon you have, and sometimes it'll prompt you with a triangle to dodge, and you go back to mashing square to fucking punch a dude or hit dude until you eventually kill him. The melee weapons are fun to use, and they do more damage, but I mean, like I said, they're basically just the same thing, so I can see why people would complain about the melee combat. Then, moving into the stealth aspect of the game, which is my personal favorite. The game does some cool things that I will bring up, but before that, I mean, stealth is obviously you hide, you kill, you repeat until everyone's dead, or you want to leave. I mean, we all know how stealth works, but one thing this game does that is pretty cool that I really haven't seen many other games do is when you kill people, like, it feels kind of real. So I'll explain what I mean by that. So let's say in other games, you kill somebody and the enemy finds a dead body. They're just like, oh, the main character is here. We must look harder for him, right? I mean, we all know what I'm talking about. And before I say this, I could be completely wrong about this. Other games have probably definitely done this before. It's just this is the first time I ever saw it implemented into a game like this, so I thought it was super dope. So in The Last of Us, when people find a dead body, they will like freak out. So like, let's say you kill Bob Joe and his friend Joe Bob comes running over. he will scream out the guy's name and like freaking out that his friend is fucking dead, and he's like screaming his name like oh my god, he's fucking dead, he's fucking dead. It's crazy. It's just a small touch that that they do that makes these characters feel like even more real. You can distract people by obviously throwing bottles or bricks in different directions, and they'll go check out whatever that is. You know what it is. And you can also set up traps with like proximity bombs and stuff like that. Another cool thing that they give you is it's called a listening mode. It's where the whole screen turns black and gray, and anyone that's moving or talking, they turn white. And you can obviously see through the walls and that kind of stuff. But if they're not moving or not talking, they won't show up on the listening mode at all, because obviously they're not making any sound. And in the upgrades for Joel, you can expand the range of this. But I feel like this power really isn't too overpowered to the point where it's completely busted. But I feel like it's a good enough power, you know what I'm saying? But that wraps it out for the stealth aspect of the game. And with covering both the gameplay and the graphics, let's get to the point why everyone is playing this game. And that is for the story and for the characters, and in particular Joel and Ellie. The story in this game is by far one of the best stories I've ever seen in video games, in movies, TV shows, etc. This story is absolutely beautiful. Seeing everything that Joel and Ellie get into, how they get out of it, how the trauma actually affects them, and how they bond over what they've gone through together is just amazing. But I want to start it off with how the story kicks off so we can get a full glimpse of what really happens to Joel. And that is, so you start off and you're playing as his daughter Sarah, and you're looking for him, blah blah blah. You find him, and he takes you outside, gets you in a car with his brother Tommy, and you and the two adults are trying to get out of the city because the infection is just breaking out. They're running through the city, and Joel and Sarah end up getting separated from Tommy, and they end up getting found by a soldier, but he's given orders to kill them. He fires on them, and they fall down a hill, but Tommy comes out of nowhere, and boom, kills the soldier. But in all the commotion, Sarah ends up getting shot, and she dies in Joel's arms. So it kicks off with a really fucking sad intro in the first 5 fucking minutes. But it cuts to black, and we skip forward 20 years. And we see how that affects him in little glimpses throughout the game, and it'll all come to a head at the end of the game. Then going through the journey with Joel and Ellie, they'll introduce little side characters, to bring them in and to let you see different sides of both of the main characters and let them fully be fleshed out as characters. It's really nice and refreshing going from this post-apocalyptic world to see Joel actually talking about motorcycles and talking about his previous life, and Ellie actually being a kid and wanting to play with toys and reading comics. It feels like Naughty Dog just really wanted to make them feel like real people that you could actually relate to. And that is what makes the trauma they go through harder on you as a player as well. And seeing how Joel and Ellie's relationship develops through the game is very endearing. In my personal opinion, I'd probably say it's the best part of the game. I mean, when it starts off, they really don't care too much about each other. Joel is just taking this as a job, and Ellie really just wants to go where she's going. But as stuff happens and everything kind of crumbles under them, they have to rely on one another to keep moving forward. And all the time that they spend together and all the stuff that they go through, it's almost impossible not to develop a relationship like they do. You can really truly see that as the game goes on, Joel sees Ellie as a daughter and that he will do anything for her. And for Ellie, Joel is the last person that she is emotionally attached to. Everyone else in her life has either left her or is dead. And through this journey, seeing them grow that bond together, I would say it's almost impossible for you, the player, not to grow a bond to them. It really is. You have to be cold-hearted to not to. The actual story itself, though, I would say fully is about the human nature and human will. They really do use the infection or zombie storyline as a great way to represent humans. It's the will of Ellie to keep pushing through so many setbacks, to move through all the trauma and all the failures just to get to the final destination, to get to the Fireflies. And the natural nature of a father to protect his daughter. Joel, I mean, you can tell through events that happen in the game, will protect Ellie through almost anything, and he will give his life for her. I don't want to spoil too much of the journey and all of what happens in it, because if you haven't played it yet, I really do highly recommend this game. I mean, you really should go and experience it yourself before having me just completely fucking just talk about it. It is by far the best way to experience it, obviously. Like I said, though, I highly recommend it. I mean, I could not recommend it any fucking higher. So from here on out, I'm covering spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, bye-bye. One huge driving factor, I'd say, that created the bond was facing all of the loss together. Like when Tess first got bit and having to deal with that, and seeing her dead body getting shot by the soldiers, and then having Henry killing Sam because he got bit because of them as well, and then Henry freaking out and killing himself because he just killed his brother. It must have been so hard for them to see happen. Moving on, obviously, though, once you hit late fall going into the winter, the kind of like transition point, it's when Joel falls on the pole that gets punctured through him. Seeing the way Ellie cared for him, like getting him to the horse and getting him all the way to destination, and then having him in the basement wrapped up, caring for him and treating him and going out hunting for food. It was a great way to see how their relationship developed from at the beginning of the game, because if this happened in the beginning, Ellie would be like, fuck, well, they're both dead. I mean, what am I supposed to do now? Wouldn't give basically two shits about it, but this is her father. Ellie cannot let him die. And then on the complete flip side of that, when Joe wakes up and Ellie is gone and kidnapped by David, it really shows how much he cares by, I mean, he's obviously still injured, but going out fighting all of these people. I mean, he tortures the two people to get the location of Ellie. This is more than just the job now. This isn't just about getting his guns back from Marlene. He doesn't care about that anymore. This is fully about getting his daughter back. Then seeing them reunite after everything, and Joel holding Ellie and stopping her from completely destroying David's face with a machete. I'm laughing because it's kind of funny, but it was very heartbreaking to see all the trauma that Ellie went through, but it was also reassuring in the same sense that Joel was there to take care of her and be her father, and he was back and wouldn't let this kind of thing happen again. One last thing I want to touch on before I would say the controversial ending to the game is the giraffe scene. And if you play the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say the giraffe scene. I think it's a beautiful scene at the end of the game that really establishes everything that they have went through, the bond that they've created, and the journey's meaning. It starts off with Ellie getting a ladder down for Joel. Obviously, she drops it, freaks out, runs off. You climb up the ladder, and this world has prepared you for the fact that climb up the ladder and Ellie freaking out like that, you have your gun drawn, obviously. You're prepared to fight. I mean, that's what this game has prepared you for. You're ready to blast the fuck out of whatever infected or human is standing between you and Ellie and your end goal. But then you're surprised by these beautiful animals just making their way through the city and eating off the leaves. I love seeing so much because it reminds you that even going through all of this journey together and everything, it reminds you that Ellie is still just a child. And this is her first time actually seeing these animals in real life. It's a great way to show that even though stuff happens and people die and a crazy infection fucking happened, life, it still goes on. It isn't over. It's still here. And it can still go on for you. And I think it was a beautiful message for them at the end of the game. and prepping you for what you're about to go through. It's a truly beautiful scene now, and I really can't fully capture it here. The only way to fully capture it is actually playing through it. Now, with that beautiful scene out of the way, let's talk about this controversial ending. I actually enjoyed the ending, and I thought it made sense for Joel's character and everything that they went through, and also Joel's past. Ellie is ready to do whatever it takes to save the people that she loves, like Joel and Marlene, and even the human race. And since she's immune, they'll have to take the spores out of her. And since the spores grow in her brain, they will have to kill her to remove the spores. They were obviously brought in by the fireflies, and Joel was knocked out, and Ellie almost died from drowning. So Ellie wasn't awake to make the decision of like getting the spores removed from her brain. But I do agree with what Marlene said by that would be Ellie's decision. That's what she would want to do. I do think that was in Ellie's character, and you can obviously tell that after everything happens and she's questioning Joel about it. But Marlene herself tells Joel what I just told you, that Ellie will have to die to remove the spores, and he tries reasoning with her to not kill Ellie. And I get why Joel goes on this killing rampage to get Ellie back. Before all this happened, making our way back to the beginning of the game, when Joel lost Sarah, he lost it. And before all this happened, back when they were still in the subway tunnel or wherever they were, Ellie gives Joel a picture that she stole of Joel and his daughter Sarah. And before, Joel wouldn't take it, and Joel took it now, coming from Ellie. And I think that's because that's fully showing that he does completely see Ellie as a daughter to him. And for Joel, he can't lose another daughter. So he'll do whatever it takes to get his daughter back, even if that means hurting and killing people to get to her, because he's already done it before, and we know he'll do it, so he'll do it again. He's basically ruining the world's chances of going back to normal and creating a vaccine, because he can't lose one of the last people that he cares about, and he can't lose a daughter again. And I think that ties in with the whole story of the game, like I said, being the human will and the human nature. This decision itself is very selfish, yes, but it's also very human. We can sit here all day and say it's stupid, but none of us have ever been put in that position before. We've never been in the position of losing a daughter, and you're about to lose another daughter, but you have a chance to stop it. And that's what he did. He stopped it, and I can't blame him for that. In all, though, it's about two people's journey across the country and a familial bond that develops over the year. Having to deal with the infected and having to deal with the crazy people, a bond develops through all of the growing trauma, all of the loss that they face together, and all of the love that grows for them. It's a beautiful game, and of course, you know, in my opinion, it's the best game. I won't get into the part 2 of The Last of Us here. That's a different video for a different day. But let's just check in with The Last of Us part 2 to see how it's doing.
Joel, get up. Joel, fucking get up. Please stop. Please don't do it. Joel, please get up. No!
You know what? Never mind. Let's just not talk about that, okay? We're not going to talk about that. Alright guys, I really do hope you enjoyed this video on The Last of Us though. If I change your opinion on the game, let me know in the comments below. If you still think this game is fucking buns, let me know down in the comments below. I don't know why you'd be watching this long into the video if you hate this game. Or if you just enjoyed the video, let me know down in the comments below, guys. I am always open to talk. I'll always respond to you guys, you know. Always here to talk. Like the video if you enjoyed it, obviously. and click that big red subscribe button down below, because if you don't, I'm going to feed you to a clicker or to a bloater. And guys, you really don't want that, because that sounds really painful. And even if you are able to kill it, you have to deal with getting infected, which doesn't sound funny either. So just click it for your guys' own safety. Come on, just go down and click it, guys. I hope that you, yes, you right there, have a fan-fucking-tastic day, guys. And like always, of course, deuces.